Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Hi, Vasco.
Hi, Dorina.
Hi, here we are today with our first event after a summer break without any live events. So we're really happy to have some people live today. So we have a really interesting topic to discuss with Vasco Duarte. I would just like to introduce a few words. You saw the video about Talent Garden. So myself, I work in Talent Garden since 2.5 years now, taking care of the students and classroom composition. And Talent Garden is a co-working space, a school, and a corporate transformation business unit, let's say. So this is in a really synthetic way what we are, but you can check in our website if you want to know more. I'll just would like to introduce in a few words Vasco, but then I would leave the word to him because he has a really long experience. Vasco is a product manager, agile coach, director, project manager. He's been working in the software industry since 1997, correct? And since 2004, he's an agile practitioner. So I would say one of the first people that started to work in this area. He's a friend and of Talent Garden as well. He works with us since a while now. But to me, every time I get to have a talk with him, it's always like having new insights. So I'm really curious to hear what he has for us today. And I'll leave the word to you, Vasco.
Well, thank you very much, Dorina. Thank you for that kind introduction. So my name is Vasco, of course, that you know already. And I've been working with product and service development for many years. First, as a practitioner, I was developing products myself, either as an employee and then later on as in my own company, or then as an advisor. So helping others develop products, also communicate about their products to others. And one of the things that really shocked me very early on in my life as a product developer was that there was this amazing amount of skill and knowledge that was going into the development of these products, right? So we were, really putting a lot of knowledge, experience, a lot of research, a lot of effort into developing these products, but the products weren't having the impact we wanted. And that's why we are here today, actually, where we will talk about how do we help our companies and our products to have a bigger impact in the life of our customers and our users. But before we do go into that, I would like to hear from the people on the chat, if you can, to type in, where are you connecting from? I see that Marco has already type that he's from Italy. Hi, Marco. I hope it's good weather over there. I know that you are in the last weeks of summer. I'm in Helsinki at the moment, but that means that I don't have summer anymore.
Yeah, we were just talking about that a few minutes ago, that the weather changes a bit.
All right. Tommaso from Reggio Emilia in Italy as well. Hopefully with some good weather outside as well. How about others? Whereabouts are you connecting? All right, Milano, Andrea, Giulio, Veronica, hey, welcome. Milano as well. Oh, lots of people from Milano then.
Yeah, I would say so. Also, again, Reggio Emilia. So yeah, we have mostly Italy, but someone from Vienna.
Oh, Vienna, Konstantin. Welcome. And
Madrid.
From Madrid. Awesome. That's probably even warmer than Rome.
Indeed, yes.
So welcome everybody. Great places. I haven't visited all of those places, but I have been to Milano, to Rome, to Vienna. So definitely. Enrico says there's nice weather over there. Well, awesome, Enrico. We do have good weather in Helsinki, Finland. It's not as bad as people tend to say, except November and January. Then don't visit Helsinki. It's not a good place to be. But, if you come here in February, you got this amazing cold and snow everywhere. If you come here in October, you have the amazing colors of the trees changing. So definitely a great place to be as well. Luca is saying that it's a bit cloudy. And Biagio in Naples, one of my favorite cities that I've never visited. I definitely wish to go to Naples. Yes, I'm sure Naples is warmer than Helsinki. It's 15 degrees centigrade here, so it's not that warm. All right, everybody, welcome. We have a lot of hopefully interesting insights to share with you. And now that you've started chatting, please put also questions there. We can definitely tackle some of the questions as we go through the presentation. And a bit later on, I do have a question to ask you for which I would like you to put your answers on the chat. So now I know you guys know that the chat works, which is awesome. All right, should we get started, Dorina?
Absolutely. I think everyone is curious to hear.
All right. So as I was saying when I started, I was in many of the companies that I worked at, and from banks, media, software product services, I saw this amazing amount of talent and insights being put into the design and the development of those products and services. But I also saw that there wasn't much impact, that some of those efforts were kind of lost because there was no change to the performance of the product or the service in the market. So I started to ask myself, so what's going on? And we were not the only ones, right? I mean, I don't know if you guys remember this product right here. It was a very famous Apple product that no one knows about. It's probably one of the most famous failures of that particular company. These days, everybody knows about the iPhone, which is one of the most sold phones all over the world, the iPad, the laptops that all the cool kids are sporting these days, the MacBooks. But not many people talk about the Apple Newton, which was, they say here, a message pad. They copied a lot of the ideas that were already at that time successful, like the Palm Pilot and so on. But in fact, this was actually a big failure. Now, of course, as you can imagine, it's Apple, so they put a lot of money and investment and people's time into developing this product, but the product didn't really succeed. So here's the thing, though. As I worked with these companies, I started to realize that many of these companies started from the perspective that whatever product they were introducing, it was going to solve somebody's problem. But it was going to solve somebody's problem in a vacuum. But none of our customers exist in a vacuum, right? For whatever problem we try to help them with, whatever product or service we create, our customers are probably already solving that same problem in some other way. And if you look at the Apple Newton, for example, we already know that people were using a notebook, right? A paper notebook, and they were taking notes and highlighting stuff and keeping information for later use. And they were doing that in masses, right? So no matter how much Apple tried to put a lot of effort into getting your attention to their product, the fact is that we already had a solution, and we didn't really need yet another electronic in our pockets. Eventually, we did get it. It was called a smartphone, and it does all the things the Newton did, plus more. But at that time, there wasn't many people interested in that product. From a context perspective, the temptation is, hey, let's just reach more customers. Let's just get more people to know what we're doing. And if you work in a marketing team, very likely one of your assignments is exactly that, is to get more people to know the product that you are selling or providing. Unfortunately, and I do mean unfortunately, it has never been easier to get more people to notice you. It has never been easier to get people to download something or to visit a web page or to interact with some kind of chat bot by interrupting their day, like this young person here who's looking at their phone in the metro while going to work or school and has their life interrupted by a series of advertising messages that just come through their phone. If you're on Instagram, Facebook, or even on YouTube, those that are watching us on YouTube, not now because this is a live video, but in some videos, in your case, probably most videos you watch has some advertising, right? They interrupt your life. So we do have this problem that because it's never been easier, we now have to break through all of that noise. But how do we do it? How do we get people's attention? How do we get people to pay attention to the message that we want to deliver? Now, we know that it's possible. At least some of you might remember that when the Harry Potter books came out, there were thousands of people queuing to get the books. Especially the later books of the series, they were usually published the same day everywhere in the world. But here's the kicker, at the same time, which meant that in some cities it was like 12 noon, so beginning of the afternoon, but in other cities it was 12 a.m., the middle of the night, so midnight. And people would queue. They would wait for the libraries or the bookshops to open to go and buy their copy. And in many of these parties, there was no other reason to be there other than to get the book. So how did they break through the noise? Okay, so we got one hint here, right? If you want people to pay attention to you, one way to do it is to create a community of devoted fans, right? We call them true fans at Oikosofi, the company that I work at. And we say that our role is to develop these true fans, people that will go out of their way to talk about your product, to talk to others about your product. That's one way in which we can break through the noise. But more importantly than creating true fans, so fans that will do all they can in order to push your product forward, it's important to understand what drives people to do that. What drives people to actually chase us, to queue throughout the night to get our products? This is what we will explore today. And there's 3 steps. The first one we will explore right away is called the SMIQ, for single most important question. And I'll show you what that means in a second. The second step of this process is market experiments. I'll explain what that means and why they matter for us. And the third is something that brings it all together, which we call agile portfolio management. I won't say much more about this because it will become clear as we go through the presentation. So let's dive into the first step. What is this SMIQ? That's challenge number 1 for us, right? This first, we need to get their time and their attention. If we don't get people's time and attention, we won't be able to tell them how our product helps them. We won't be able to get their preference, their, if you're selling, then of course the purchase or the sale. If you're not selling, but you're rather providing a service, to get them to use the service that you're providing. So what drives their attention? What drives people's attention, and how can we bring them to our product? The temptation is, of course, to say it louder, to shout over the rooftops, create more shocking marketing campaigns. And I'm sure many of you remember some of those shocking marketing campaigns, but they are short-lived, that they don't really add any value to the customers' lives other than, of course, the entertainment value. A memory will fade quite quickly. And it doesn't work because customers have their own priorities. So yeah, you can interrupt their lives and maybe show something shocking that gets their attention for a few seconds. Most advertising is 30 seconds, and these days, because of YouTube, maybe even 5 seconds. But then their life continues, and your product is out of their memory. Then other companies are shouting as well, right? So it's not enough that you shout. You have to shout louder than everybody else. And the more we shout to our customers, the more it numbs them to our message, the more the message becomes irrelevant. And finally, the biggest reason why this doesn't work is that shouting is about us. It's about asking them to pay attention to us. It's not about them. It's not about what they care about. It's not about what they want to experience. Remember the Harry Potter cues? It was all about them. Right? I don't know if any of you knows. Let's do a quick test here. Who's the author of the Harry Potter books? Does somebody know? Can you type it on the chat? Let's give you 5 seconds to type that on the chat. Right? Nobody's typing on the chat. Now, could somebody type then if you have read at least one of the Harry Potter books? Have you read at least one of the Harry Potter books? All right, the chat is coming in. J.K. Rowling, indeed. Most of the readers of Harry Potter, most of them, not the true fans, those will know everything about J.K. Rowling. But most of the readers will not even remember who the author was because they live the story of Harry Potter, right? It's about them as the customers of the book. It's about their experience. It's about experiencing something unique through the story. It is not about J.K. Rowling wanting to sell books or their publisher wanting to sell books. This is a very important distinction because remember that what we are trying to figure out is what drives people to make their preferences. So here's an alternative that helps us to get to that aspect, the aspect of being driven to make a choice. And that we call the SMIQ at Oikosophy, and it's part of the process we're reviewing. Stands for the single most important question. And this is a question where we ask how we can help. We try to be of service. This is very important. We try to be of service. And the question is about them. It is about the people that you're serving. It is not about your product or service or your company. It is about the customers, the users that you're trying to serve. I'm reminded of this quote by Zig Ziglar. This is just to give you an insight as to how we look at sales at Oikosophy, how we look at marketing at Oikosophy. And I think it's very well summarized by this quote by Zig Ziglar. You will get all you want in life if you help enough other people get what they want. This is the important part. And this is really the question that we should be asking. How do we help others get what they want? And of course, in order to do that, and this is the question I want you to answer and to type on the chat right now. In order for us to be able to help someone, we first need to understand what they are trying to do in the context of our product or service. So please type on YouTube the chat to the answer with the answer to the following. Regarding reaching your target customers, so reaching meaning they know who you are and they read what you write, and making them remember you so that it's not just a 5-second or a 30-second experience, what's your single biggest challenge right now? So in your experience at work, regarding reaching your target customers and making them remember you, what's your single biggest challenge right now? I'll give you some time to write the chat on write the answer on the chat just to make sure that you have time. So we have the first question, keeping the target audience's attention. Thank you, Veronica. That's the first answer. How about others? Regarding reaching your target customers and making them remember you, what's the single biggest challenge right now?
I guess answers will come all in a single moment because it takes a while to see them online. But I just read Constantine that said that he read 3 times all Harry Potter books.
My kids read it in all the languages they could read it in. So, all right, we got some answers. Enrico says, let them understand the service we offer before they lose their attention. This is a very important and a key challenge, definitely, Enrico. And of course, when they need to understand, it's because we are failing to explain. So like, how do we improve the explanation? How do we present the product or service in a way that makes sense to them in their context? Tommaso says, giving them value and useful tips they can spend in everyday life. Marco says, could be building a really effective personal branding in order to be remembered by customers. Absolutely. Irene says, find a truly unique and effective value proposition. Again, very much together with Enrico's answer, the goal of this question, the single most important question that I'm showing now on the screen as an example, is exactly to find what might be a truly unique and effective value proposition, and how to make the customer our ambassador or true fan. True fan is my word, Sophia says. Absolutely. So this is an example of an SMIQ. And right now, you are the people that I am trying to serve. So having your answers right here helps me to then shape what I'm going to say next. Because my goal, as I present the next few slides to you, is to serve you, right? So once we know what the customers struggle with, we need to find what helps them. This is a very important challenge, though, because one of the things that I learned as a product developer is that we have a lot of ideas as product developers, but they don't all, in fact, the majority of them don't work as we expect them. So we don't need only a process to find what the customers need help with. We also need a process to find how we can help them, right? So what helps them get what they want? This is our second challenge. And I want to emphasize this part here. It's what they want. It's not increased user of a particular product or increased price of a service, whatever that might be. That's our need. That's not their need. That's not our customers' need. That's not our true fans' need. We need to find out what helps customers get what they want, right? First question is to figure out what they want. So that's the SMIQ. And then the second part of the process is the process to find how they can get what they want using our product and service. And the answer is very simple to describe, but very hard to put in practice because it requires effort and discipline and consistency in the work that we do as product and service developers. And that is to run experiments. Now, I've visualized here a very short prototype of what an experiment process would look like. Most important for you to understand is that the SMIQ is a constant input to what experiments we need to run, right? So we get ideas from the SMIQ, we brainstorm ideas for experiments, we filter them based on our business goals, and then we run a lot of micro experiments. And we do this by being consistent and disciplined about what are the things we want to try, and then measuring the impact on our customers' lives, right? So it's not just about doing, it's also about measuring, has it had the impact that we expected? And this is one example of a board that we use to visualize the type of experiments we run. You will notice that the first thing we start with is questions and ideas for growth, right? So we need to start from the perspective of not knowing. We need to start by saying, what are the things that we need to discover? We use the SMIQ to feed that, right? To give us the ideas of the questions, the hypotheses, the things we don't know that we want to discover. Then we create specific questions and filter them for business goals. This part is very important because, of course, we are not just trying to understand customers on their own. We are trying to understand customers in the context of us providing a service or product to them. And then we run experiments and we collect knowledge. In fact, this is one of the things that we focus on, which is, not just running experiments, but then creating a model for what might work in the future and then running more experiments. This process we call Agile Portfolio Management. And the reason why we call it that is because we are focusing on very quickly and through very short feedback cycles, learn how we can help our customers get what they want. Right, so SMIQ, and then running experiments on a quick cycle is what we call Agile Portfolio Management. So quick experimentation, the message that I want you to take away from this is that quick experimentation will always be better and faster than market research. And we can do a lot of small things very quickly. For example, we can run landing page tests. Landing page test is when we build a page that has only one goal, which is to assess the action taken by the customer, right? And that's just the landing page. There's nothing behind. There's no service or software. And there's a lot of things we can test using that technique. Another technique which we could use is called the concierge test, where basically we have a phone number that is available, and that phone number gets us in direct contact with customers. They, for example, ask for, food delivery. All right, so you want to test a new food delivery service. Well, we can start with a concierge service. Before developing a whole app and, creating a network, an ecosystem of restaurants in your food delivery system, you can start with just a phone number and then directly call the restaurant and fetch the food from there. That's just one example. Or we can do even simpler, a sales pitch test, which is basically a conversation we have with customers, right? It could be an interview on the street. It could be a online conversation. It could be a conversation with the customer face-to-face that you're visiting in the near future. The sales pitch test is one way to go straight from an hypothesis, an idea, to something valuable to the customer and assess their reaction to that proposal, right? To that value proposition that we were talking about a moment ago on the chat. The goal of this is to learn what works in practice, not in theory. This is very important because market research, even when it's really good, only tells you what works in theory, right? So if you want to know what works in practice, you need experimentation. We use the best experiments to drive more people to our SMIQ. This is a trick that I want to share with you. This alone can completely modify how you develop products in your organization or personal branding, as somebody mentioned a moment ago, which is to use what we call a virtuous cycle of continuous learning in order to improve both how you message your customers, so what you talk about, what kind of messages you put together, but also how you develop your service or product going forward. How we do it is that we link all of these three things together. We use the SMIQ to learn about the customer. As we learn about the customer, we run experiments. With the knowledge and insights of that experiment, we change the product. But at the same time, we are running experiments in the messaging. We're creating traffic or attention to the products we generate. And the people we bring to the products or the landing pages or concierge tests that we generate, then we get more SMIQ answers. And what we have here, it's a spiral. It's a constant growth of knowledge and ideas about what works in practice. And think about this for a second. We started this cycle with this very simple idea that you ask customers what they struggle with, not what they think they want, not the features they want for the product or the service, but rather what they struggle with, the things that they haven't yet resolved in a satisfactory manner. And that's where we develop the product. And this is all about them. This is the key message that I want to leave with you today, is that even when you start with a small group, maybe it's not, it's not Harry Potter sized group, right? But even when you start with a small group, if we stop selling and we start helping, we will grow that group. And that group will bring more people in. And this is a positive spiral of growth. In another workshop that I've hosted in TAG's Digital Master as well, we go into a lot more of what does this growth mean and why is growth so important when developing products. But for now, I want you to keep this idea in mind. Your mission as a product market specialist, product marketing or communication specialist, or as a product developer is not to build a product, is to help people. And if you figure out how, then your product will grow with it. So here's the quick summary. Always start by understanding what your customers need help with. That's our SMIQ. Then run experiments, generate ideas, hypotheses, and run lots of market tests to validate that you do understand what is relevant and important for your customer, and then put it all together in what we call the Agile portfolio management, which is market and product research become one. It's not only about figuring out what messaging works, but actually it's figuring out how to develop the products forward so that they help the customers even more. What I'm asking you to consider is how much and how far can we go with unifying product design and product marketing, because they really are the same thing. And that's the goal, the objective of this Agile portfolio management approach, is to bring this knowledge that market impact, so being recognized and remembered by your customers, is the goal of product development. It's not the product that is the goal, it's the market impact. And the last thing, of course, is once you're successful at this, you can use the attention you get to get even more insights through the SMIQ process. Now we have some time for Q&A. Just wanted to leave you a word that if you have questions or thoughts that you would like to explore further, you can email me and ask your questions, so don't hesitate to get in touch. This presentation is part of a larger set of presentations that are focused on product developers and product marketing and communication specialists, and they are focused specifically on product and service companies. But at the end of the day, what we are trying to do is to help people. So even if you think you don't fit that particular classification, if you're trying to help people, these are tools that you can use and succeed with. But now we have time for questions, Dorina.
We have already a first one that actually Enrico wrote a few minutes ago, but I didn't want it to interrupt. While talking about experiments, you were explaining a bit experiments. He's asking if you mean A/B testing or multivariated tests.
So there's plenty of tests. So Enrico, yes, and more. So what you describe in your question are just two types or two strategies for running tests. In a landing page test, for example, you could run A/B test and multivariate test, but you also need to do exploration experiments, which are not necessarily A/B or multivariate. They are literally to figure out if certain things work in a context, right? So, for example, you might, as you start getting answers for your SMIQ, you might generate 4 or 5 different potential product ideas, right? And now you want to assess the impact of those product ideas on the customers. In other words, what kind of action do they take? What kind of questions do they ask? What else don't they understand? So we can also run exploration tests. And then one of my favorite ones, though, is the sales pitch test. And the sales pitch test is something that can be run in sales communication. So it does not need to be marketing, right? You're meeting a customer in a sales meeting. You can use the sales pitch test in order to validate certain assumptions or ideas about the product or service. So it's not only A/B tests and multivariate tests, but also those. These are just different strategies, and it depends on what part of the exploration phase you're in, right? Are you really trying to narrow down some aspects, or are you perhaps even trying to explore an area to generate even more ideas?
Super. Thanks, Vasco. We have another question from Riccardo. How do we manage to create a product that helps people in a market where basically every need is satisfied by other products? That's a do you want me to make slides invisible, or do you want to keep them, Vasco?
No, please do keep them visible.
Yeah.
That's a great question, Ricardo. So I would say that all markets already have that, right? So let me just show you this. When we got started, I show you this slide, right? So when the the Apple Newton came out, everybody was using a notebook, right? Maybe all of us are using a notebook in our daily lives. I mostly use post-it notes because I like to write and throw them away. But hey, Dorina is using a notebook. There you go. But uh, Apple Newton's idea was not dead. It was just that Apple Newton, the product, Apple Newton, did not help the customers get what they wanted. And, we can speculate as to the reasons why, but it didn't help them, right? So all markets, literally all markets already have all problems solved by a specific product. It could be a notepad, could be a paper clip, or it could be a very expensive car. Depends on what market you're talking about. But all markets already have customers solving that problem somehow. There's a whole area of study called the jobs to be done framework that starts from the perspective that what matters is not the problem they are solving, it's the context and the causality, right? The context of the customer and also why they want that problem solved that matters. And it's through that we can find better products. And we could talk about many different examples. Right now in Helsinki, there's a lot of people riding around in electric scooters. I bet that Milano and Madrid at least have. Maybe Vienna also has electric scooters everywhere. There's so many of them, they almost look like trash in some places because they're all one on top of the other and falling down. Nobody needed that before those scooters came up, right? People were already solving the problem of short distance transportation before the scooters existed. But then the scooters came and the scooters grew a completely different market, right? A market for short distance, rapid transportation, right? People that take the scooters are probably opting for the scooter instead of hiring a taxi, a tram, or a bus, as an example, right? So I think we should always start from the perspective that whatever products we are there to solve are probably, very likely, already being solved in some other way by some other product. And that's okay, because what we want to focus on is on helping people getting what they want. And if you can help them get what they want in a better way, this is why the context and the causality matters, right? If we can help them get what they want in a better way, they will use your product. And that's really what we should be focusing our product design process around, is how do we find a better way to help people, enough people, get what they want.
Okay, thank you. Let's jump to the next one. Dennis is asking, what is the most effective way to understand the customer's struggle?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Thank you for that, Dennis. So my own approach and the approach we use in our company is to ask a very simple question. I mean, we did an experiment right here in this particular presentation just a few minutes ago, which was to ask the single most important question, right? So when we focus on the single most important question, our goal is to understand what drives customers to make a decision, right? It's not about us, it's about them. And when we think about them, we specifically think about regarding something, this is what they want to achieve, right? This was my hypothesis about what you, who are now watching this, want to achieve. What's your single biggest challenge right now? And then we listen to them. Now, the process isn't just ask them this question. Asking them this question is the first step, right? And then something that I've worked on with Dorina and the team at Talent Garden is once you get the answers, You now need to figure out from the answers, what is it that they really struggle with, right? And we do things like focus on using their words when describing the product. So don't use your words, the technical words we would normally use. Don't use those. Use the words that your customers use to describe the product. That's one technique that we use, because that helps us to crystallize what the customers mean in the context of what we are trying to provide to them, right? So for me, the most important aspect is to build a process around the single most important question, where we are constantly collecting information from the market, learning to use our customers' words, and then processing that information through in our case, that's what we advise our customers to do, through an experimentation process where you quickly go and you test things out in the real market. So instead of waiting for some company to do market research, you actually go out and talk to customers directly using techniques such as these tests that I was talking about, right? Now, I'm not saying that you will learn what your customers struggle with the first time you do this, but you will definitely get closer. And the more tests, the more experiments you run, the better you will understand. And very likely you will understand areas that are not yet covered by your product or service. And that may be why they aren't choosing to use your product or service, because they don't feel that you are helping them.
Okay, thank you. I don't see other questions for now. Maybe we can wait a couple more minutes before going all to lunch break. Regarding the last question, Vasco, I would like to add another question on the top. So no, Ricardo has another one, so I'm going to give priority to Ricardo. He's asking, so we can say that sometimes it's about creating a problem and then finding a solution instead of creating a solution for a problem that they already have. Is it true?
So, Ricardo, thank you for the question. Many product companies start from that perspective. And if we study product development, actually, we see that a lot of successful products started by somebody who now is the creator of the product, solving the problem for themselves. Right? Like, scratching your own itch is the phrase we hear a lot on the software world. We see a problem, we create a solution, and then we build a business around it. There's many companies that have done that successfully. Now, the idea behind this is that me as a product developer, having gone through a problem and solving it, I now know what's best for you. And granted, this will work in many cases. So when you say, can we sometimes talk about creating the problem and then finding the solution? Yes, you can do that, right? You can create the problem, either through your experience or because, you want to create that kind of context and then sell a solution for it. That's not what I'm advocating. When J.K. Rowling started writing the Harry Potter books, she did not know there would be millions of people queuing to buy their books. That was unexpected, right? And what I'm trying to say here is that the majority of high-value products in our lives happen through somebody genuinely creating something that has an impact, right? In the case of Harry Potter books, that has an impact in the life of the readers of the books. And the impact is what we should be looking for. So instead of focusing on the problem, and there are many different problems that we will need to solve for our customers and users as we develop the product, I would like us to focus on the impact, right? So as Zig Ziglar says, what can you help customers with that gets them what they want? So instead of talking about problems, I like to talk about the process of going from a problem to an impact, right? That's what we call the agile portfolio management, is a process that even though we might start with a problem or a challenge, the goal is to very quickly go into market experimentation and learning from that, and then iterating that concept all the time, right? In effect, we very often talk about that product development isn't one direction, one pass process. It's a never-ending circle, right? We get more insights, we solve another problem, or we solve the same problem in a different way. We ask the questions again, and then we get more insights, and then it's this constant, if you will, constant market testing in the end that we're doing, that we want to focus on. So I would say that most of the time we focus on understanding the customer, their struggle, their context, and what drives them to take certain decisions, right? The causality of their decision making, and then building a product around that. And yes, sometimes it is about solving a problem, yes, but it's not always only about solving a problem.
Vasco, we'll take the last question if it's okay for you. So Tommaso is asking, could you please provide us an example of a successful product/service you developed by using this process?
Yeah, absolutely. Tommaso, that's one of the things that I would say you need to go through the workshop. And I know that Talent Garden has a regular digital masters where I go through some of the examples of those products, that I have developed in the past. I don't have a concrete example right here to share with you, but let's just say that this is the process that I have been working with for almost 10 years now. So in other words, I use this process for everything, whether it is a presentation like this one, or a product like a software product, or even a service, or other products that we develop in our company, like books and e-courses. Those are products that, or all of the products we develop are developed with this mindset and this approach. But I would encourage you to take the plunge and go through Talent Garden's Digital Masters, and there we will dive into a lot more. In my presentation, we dive into a lot more examples and talk about revenues and customer impact and so on.
Okay. I guess this is it. It's also almost lunchtime in Italy. It's almost 1 p.m. And you know that for Italians, food is a serious thing. So Vasco, I would like to thank you a lot for this presentation, for sharing your thoughts, your experiences with us today. Thanks to everyone who was here and participated actively, and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for participating actively.
Goodbye.